Hello, my friends. So, I'm going to share an interesting experiment with you today and hopefully show you how to find the self, which is your true self, in any object of perception, and even actually to know yourself as the source, literally the source of the universe. Let's pick up any object. Okay, let's pick up this object, which is a bottle of kombucha, which I enjoy drinking. So let's look at this bottle of kombucha first as a direct experience. As a direct experience, this bottle is a sensation. It can be a sound. Okay, it's a visual form. It's a taste and smell. That's it. Direct experience of this object. So what are these? These are sense perceptions. Of course, in order for me to fully experience this, I also have a feeling. Do I like it? Do I not like it? And then for me to express this to you, I need thoughts. So this object is a direct experience, is a combination of sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. Image is the form. Okay, where is this happening? If you trace back each of these experiences, sensations, images, feelings, thoughts, the acronym is SIFT, S-I-F-T. Trace it back, and it's a fluctuation. It's a vritti. Vritti means fluctuation of consciousness. It's the Shakti behind the Shiva, and the Shiva is pure consciousness. Infinite, unbounded, pure, untarnished, irreducible, unfathomable, timeless. The screen that's fluctuating is all experience. Not only this bottle, but everything else, including this body. That's direct. But now let's examine this experience in what is usually referred to as the scientific model. Okay, the scientific model says that this is made of matter. Matter includes glass, includes plastic, includes the liquid there, and actually the bacteria inside, the probiotics. That's a description of this as matter. Matter is made of molecules. Molecules are made of atoms. Atoms are made of particles, and particles are clouds of probability in mathematical space. So trace it back materially, scientifically, and you end up with mathematical space and theoretical physics and everything else, which is also happening in consciousness, in awareness, the ultimate, irreducible, fundamental. The concept of matter, the scientific model, theories of matter that are conceived, governed, constructed, and become experience as the object we call matter in scientific terms. Now let's look at the same object as a human story. Okay, so where did this come from? Well, it was delivered by someone to my apartment, and that someone was a trucker. And of course, the trucker has his own life or her own life, and then is part of the trucking company, which has innumerable employees. And whoever delivered this has relationships with some of those employees, is concerned about his or her job, and has the usual experiences of existence like you and me, joy and suffering and thoughts and imagination and all that. And then, of course, the trucking company. And then the delivery is from a warehouse, which has its own ecosystem of relationships. And then, of course, the warehouse is owned or rented by the company, let's say Amazon, where this was ordered, which has thousands of employees, and all the relationships and all the people and all the unions and on and on. And of course, these are all humans, but inside this is bacteria. Our bacteria, the original genetic information of all biological forms, and they're in our body as well. And the bacteria are from the earth and part of the ecosystem of trees and sunshine and weather patterns and the rotation of the earth and the earth going around the sun and on and on. The set of relationships is traceable back to everything that's happening in the universe, because we can comprehend this through the human brain and body as a separate object, but actually it is a modification of, again, the source of all experience, consciousness. That's what knows this as the history. And the history goes back to the universe. Those bacteria, ultimately genetic information made of atoms, particles of fluctuations, of probability clouds, and exist in this great unknown that we call mathematical space. But on a scientific level, these particles, atoms, were forged in the crucible of burning stars. And some of them go back to the Big Bang, some 400,000 years later, and the entire evolution of the universe is right here. Okay, from stars to galaxies to bacteria to the original life forms, chemolitho-autotrophic hyperthermophiles, the bacteria that lived on the rims of volcanic rocks, which are our original ancestors. Let's say that's the story. But now ask yourself, what is it that knows this knowing? What is it that knows this knowing? And the only answer is, it is I. It is I that is the knower of this knowing of experience and the modeling of this experience. And where is that I? That I is not the human body mind, because the human body mind is entangled with everything else that I just mentioned. That I is that which is curving back within itself and recycling as the human body mind and all of existence known. And that I knows the knowing of experience. And you and I are that knowing of experience. Fundamental, original, source of all experience, source of all modeling, source of all scientific theories, source of all philosophy, and source of everything that we call existence, the entire universe. So just by looking at any object, doesn't matter. I mean, I chose this object, I could have chosen this object, or this object, or this object. You also recognize that these objects are fluctuating as originally as sensations, images, feelings, and thoughts. And now I come to some very interesting notes from the past. And here is something that I want to share, only part of it, from the 3 dharma seals. Some say 4 dharma seals, but it doesn't matter. Let's see the 3 dharma seals that the Buddha described. And they are as follows. Number 1, the relative is impermanent. So everything that I described, including this body-mind, is the relative, not the absolute. The absolute is the source, and it's impermanent, obviously, right? Everything I described is impermanent, starting with these words, fluctuations of vibrations called sound. Okay, the relative is impermanent. The separate self, number 1. Number 2, the separate self does not exist. What is the separate self? This. Okay, or whatever else. Everything that I described appears separate on the screen of consciousness, but actually that's not true. Okay, because everything I described originates from the absolute. And the 3rd dharma seal here is the nirvana is the ultimate reality. So what is nirvana? Behind all these concepts and these stories and these philosophies and the science is the absolute, immeasurable, intangible, unfathomable, mysterious, non-local, fundamental, irreducible, and beyond all comprehension, and yet without it, no comprehension. That is I. I am, is the source of the universe. And you can find I am in every object. Everything that you see, everything that you think, everything that you perceive through the 5 senses, every model you create goes back to I. The inscrutable without form, without which there is neither form nor phenomenon. So, on a regular basis, you don't need to go through all this analysis. On a regular basis, bring presence to every experience, to every object. So it becomes the universe inside you. Bring presence to every sentient being. So you fall in love with the universe, which is your own self. Let me know what you think.